All right. I was about to call you Devin, but I don't want to.
Yeah, it's Devin. I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, for sure. All right. Well, man, I've been wanting to rap with you for a minute because you hold a very unique position. You know what I'm saying, especially in our field. You know what I'm saying. So just to hear your journey, you know what I'm saying, your story.
Yeah.
Or just really just to talk about whatever. You know what I'm saying. But of course, I just kind of want to say what's up, and I appreciate you for sliding on here, you know what I'm saying, and showing love. Black social workers,
That's
they
it.
say it's not a lot of us, but I
Yeah.
seem to know a lot.
Correct. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
say it's like, oh, well, you're dime or not, you're not dime business. Like, you are very, like you're very rare, but it's like, I feel like I know like at least, 100,
Correct. I think they say that when they working in the agency, you don't see each other.
Yeah, right, right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, we out here, man. I see a lot of not only just black social workers, but just young. I think a lot of us being in this space and choosing to do social work or social work choosing us as a profession of service. And I see we're all kind of putting our own unique flavor on it. And so I think that's the one thing that I look at as watching kind of everyone else and their respect to their craft in a sense, and just the uniqueness that we have in our field, and we kind of bring our own approach, our whole selves to it. So yeah.
Okay, for sure. And how'd you get? Well, for anybody who don't know, my man Devin is a social worker. I don't know if that's like the title, but it's you work for the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost called you the Oakland Raiders, but I gotta
Yeah.
the Las Vegas Raiders. You know what I'm saying? Which is, like I said, it's very unique. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? But how'd you how'd you get in that position?
Man, I mean, long story, short story. I give you the movie version, I
Okay,
guess,
for
of a
sure.
story. I would say my path was unique in a sense where um, you know, just being a social worker, or just pursuing the field of social work. I was always kind of in a sense groomed. I would say my mother is a social worker, a master's social work, and she graduated from Barry University. So I was able to watch her at about probably 14, 15 years old, walk across the stage and complete her master's degree. And I just thought that I was like, just the proudest moment I've been, of my mom in that moment, because, she was a single mom with 6 kids. And, I just always, felt like that was her passion. I kind of felt like she kind of, almost took her own heart out and gave it to me as far as when it came to serving people. And so, I remember doing an internship with her in like high school or something. She worked with like a geriatric population and she would do home visits. So, I always had like that core understanding of the field, but it was always through like my mom's eyes in a sense. Um, so when I was growing up, my first passion was always football. It's kind of just like my place where I always felt like this is where I'm going to make a name for myself. And I got an opportunity to get a scholarship, and had one school that offered me a scholarship. That was my dream of just playing college football. I was always just kind of like, if I get there, man, that's just like the pinnacle. And got an opportunity to go to the University of Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. Played there for 4 years. Was a captain for my senior year, 2 year starter, and that was kind of just like, in a sense, if life would have just ended there, I would have been fulfilled. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Because as a kid, that's all I wanted to do, and so got that opportunity. Was able to pursue football, and you know, um, just had like a freak accident on my last college game, man, and getting ready for like the biggest game of my career. Had opportunity, at the time there was being talks about me being slated at getting drafted, and at that time I just, it was always just like a dream come true. And so like 10 minutes before my last game, collegiate bowl game, first bowl game in our school history, 10 minutes before the game starts, I freak accident, dislocate my kneecap, and I don't even get to play in the game. And so at that moment, I was just kind of like, why would this happen to me? This is like the biggest moment of my life. Everything is aligning for me to be able to provide for my family. And for that to just kind of just be snatched away in that moment of just like, what's really going on. So, um, coming out of that, I got an opportunity to go to try out for the Raiders. And got invited as an undrafted rookie. Went out to Oakland. And, I had this dream of playing 20 years in the NFL. Being all pro, all these different visions for my life, and that dream was cut to 3 days. So was part of rookie minicamp. Came in on I want to say a Thursday. I was gone by Sunday. You know what I mean? And it was 80 guys trying out for 8 spots. And it really just showed me like the business of the NFL, right? Because as a kid, you just grow up with this vision of, you just see the guys on TV. You don't really understand, the inner workings behind the players. Obviously, now being in the building, I have a better understanding of that. But, I didn't really always understand that part. So when, my career was cut short to those 3 days, it kind of left me in a place where I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And so that's where the field of social work kind of steps in. So my first job when I got cut, it was probably about 4 months after I got cut. I was just looking for anything. At that point, I had a son on the way. I was like, I need a job. You know what I mean? So at that point, I was like, man, I'm going to just cut my losses and just become a PE coach. That was the goal. I was like, man, if I could get me a PE job, do that for 40 years, man, I'll be good. But it was kind of different plans, man. I got an opportunity to, my first job was working with children in foster care. I was an independent living specialist at the time, 22 years old, fresh out of college. I didn't know much about my own independence at that because, football had pretty much provided me, all these different opportunities, especially in my young adulthood. So fresh into the job, man, I was helping, helping kids, man, really just giving them the tools that they needed to transition out of foster care. And, in that work, I just, going there every day, I still kind of had that itch to play football, still felt like I could do that. But day in and day out, those kids provided me something that I felt like, I had never really had. And that was just, kids that were looking at me as like I had accomplished something. I always kind of felt like, the monologue between me and other people when I didn't get a chance to go to the NFL was always like, man, you still playing? Like, what you gonna do, bro? You gonna give up? You done? Like, that was always the dialogue. But those kids were always like, man, you did this. Like, you accomplished this. You know what I mean? And so that perspective for me was just like, oh, wow. Like, these kids see that as, obtainable. They know somebody that they can physically touch. That's accomplished something that they set out to do. And so, that was like that rewarding, piece that I kind of felt like every day I could wake up and do this work. And, I say that, but I also try to run away from this field as well. I tell people all the time, like I was raised by a social worker, so I know how much, we get paid. My childhood was funded by a social worker. So right. I know very well, this field ain't one that, sometimes people feel like they can afford to, take care of a family. So, that was kind of always in my back burner. My mind was always football was going to make me $1 million. So, my first job, I think it was paying me $13.50 an hour. I know people that make that at Lowe's, you know what I mean? So,
right.
I'm taking care of kids, helping them, with so many different phases of life. And I just felt like, one, obviously we could talk about pay equity, but at the same time, it was just like, why does, this career not, provide me an opportunity to really feel like I can take care of my family? So I tried to run away from social work for a while, try to do some other things. But, just calling that kind of kept me coming back. And so, once I decided to go like full tilt and go back to pursue my MSW, I think that's when it really all clicked. And to kind of just accelerate the story, I would say I graduated December 2019. At the time, I was just, happy to, just be graduating and walk across that stage and have that feeling, right? And at the time, I had done some things while I was in school. I had started a nonprofit or founded a nonprofit organization in my hometown called Inspire Youth Mentoring Services. And I had started a business that was really around consulting for athletes around mental health. And so, like, as this was, kind of coming to fruition, as I finally graduated, I was like, man, I'm gonna have all the opportunities to just do this full tilt. Because I had been in school around the same time that I was doing all this stuff. So I was like, finally, once I'm done, I'll be able to jump all in. And then, January, actually my birthday, January 12th, 2020, I went skydiving. It was like one of the craziest days of my life, man. I went skydiving. I told myself I was going to do something crazy for my 30th. went skydiving. As soon as I landed, like literally hit the ground, thankful to be alive, had this whole surreal moment. I go to my car, and in that, I look at my phone and I have a message from someone I met at a conference. And the conference was the Black Student Athlete Summit. Her name is Kara McClendon. And we had connected at this conference, maybe a 10, 15-minute conversation. I was in the right place at the wrong time, I would say, because I was going to the wrong side of the campus for this conference, and they had moved the room. And so we wound up bumping into each other. She told me, hey, you're going the wrong way. In that 15-minute, just walking and talking, I just mentioned to her that I was a social worker, just recently graduated, and I had once tried out for the Raiders. And in that conversation, days later, she wound up sending me a job that the Raiders were looking for a social worker. And I was just like, my 30th birthday, I'm just like, wow, man, what is, yeah. So, that night I kind of just canceled all my plans and really just, put together my resume, cover letter, submitted everything. And then, the pandemic hit. So this was January 2020, pandemic hit. And so, I was probably two interviews in. And then everything just started to just go dry. Like everything just kind of shut down. And so, at the time I'm like, man, is this real? Is this really going to happen? I got so many other things that I'm working on with my, my own organizations and businesses. And I was like, do I really want to give up all the momentum I just built to go pursue something? You know what I'm saying? That's obviously a great opportunity, but is it really truly alignment, especially with the world, where we were in the world, you know what I mean? Especially when, when with the George Floyd and everything that Ahmaud Arbery, like all those different things were happening at the same time. And I'm just like conflicted. And, I'm here in my community. I finally have given myself an opportunity to serve. But at the same time, I'm like, this is an opportunity that, social workers don't always get. And so, time kind of, in that moment just kind of felt like it froze. And then coming out of it, the conversations picked back up, got invited to an interview to come out to Vegas, and then, found out I got the job. And so that was kind of just like the movie version, in a sense, longer than I thought it would be. But, in a sense, that's kind of how it all like just kind of played out as far as the timeline.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. So do it be like that for real? Like you looking for a job as a social worker in the NFL, and it be a job that's posted, and you just go apply. Like, so like there ain't no no back door. There ain't no secret room you gotta be in and shit.
Secret handshakes. Yeah. I would say, as far as one of the things that every NFL team now has is a team clinician, right? And I mean, one of the things is that position at times, depending on the organization, it could be a full-time position in the organization, or it can be a contractor that pretty much contracts out their therapeutic services. The role that I applied for was at the time was the first role at the team level that had a designated social worker to work with former players. So at the time, that was the role that they have it at in the partnering organizations that partner with the NFL to provide services. So like the NFL PA has some social workers. The Player Care Foundation has some social workers as well. Shout out to my girl Valen. She's over there, and she was a social worker I got a chance to connect with. But yeah, they had social workers that were serving like the gamut of retired players. But as far as from the team aspect of designated person serving just the former players for a team, the Raiders were the first to kind of put that in place. And so, it's, I would say, man, I think back on it, man, and I think about it, and it's like, I was the only outside candidate when I applied for that job. And, a lot of times, usually when they do a search for like a specific role such as that, they'll hire like a recruiter or somebody to kind of go out and, kind of find that candidate that has all those skill sets. Right. And so I was in the right place, I would say, with that Black Student Athlete Summit, because I know some of the guys that I met there, people that I had met at that conference were some of the names that were being mentioned as well. So I think sometimes it's being in the right rooms, people will kind of be able to kind of connect you to your skill sets. But I would say, man, it was pretty unique in my situation. But, as I would say, as things start to really unfold, especially, particularly around mental health and particularly around, protecting athletes and the lives of former players, I hope that's something that becomes just as stable. But I know our owner is unique in a sense where he truly invests in former players because he grew up around these guys when his father owned the organization. So his affinity for the alumni is different. And
Yeah.
so he really invested in that from the organization standpoint, and gave us an opportunity as a department to really serve. And so I was blessed in that sense to be in that seat for the last 2.5 years or 2.5 seasons or so, to be able to serve the Raiders alumni.
Okay, for sure. Now, before we get into your new position,
Mhm.
so like, how did you like serve the Raiders alumni? So like what was kind of the social work thing that you did with them?
Yeah. So really, I mean, I would. It's very much like case management. I mean, the reality is, there's a lot of former players. I mean, these are
Hmm.
players that span from 1960 to present day. So
Right.
you're working, with guys who maybe 90 plus years old as well, all the way to guys who are 20, 23. So, it was, for me really was learning just the layout of all the NFL benefits that these guys were entitled to, and that their
Mm.
families were entitled to. And so that was really, the first part was like truly learning, what the NFL offered in their pension packages and their benefits packages, because that was the biggest thing that guys sometimes just wouldn't be in the loop of what benefits that they were afforded, from playing in the NFL. And so, that was one of the things that I would truly, just love is, kind of connecting the guy with something that he needed and didn't truly even know he had it. You know what I mean? It was
Mm.
like, man, did you know that you had this account full of this amount of money for your medical expenses that you can be able to get reimbursed for? And having conversations like that, because a lot of times, these guys, once they step away from the game, it's that period of transition. And so, for some of them, just even being around the game, even communicating with a former team, it just kind of, to them, it just wasn't something that they, just felt like at that point of their transition that they were ready to do. And so,
Right.
I had an opportunity, man, just to be in that seat and, just be able to build rapport. Obviously, my story helped passing through the organization, and a lot of guys just having that admiration for me to be able to be back in the organization in this capacity. And so, I was able to use that, and I know that I was privileged in that sense, to be able to have that tie to football and to the organization, having passed through. But yeah, the case management aspect of it, I think I would say the case management aspect is like the heavy part. Obviously doing the one-on-ones, more of a micro type of role.
Mm.
But I also, had the opportunity to do a lot of program development, and I think that was one of my passions. It is one of my passions is program development, being able to implement programs, be able to evaluate them to show, their impact. And so we were able to do a couple different programs to really be able to do a lot of outreach and, just figure out who was our vulnerable populations, that we were doing outreach for. And so, you kind of got a way of, being able to look at, who we've been able to touch, who we haven't been able to touch, who is kind of the missing link, and then being able to, build different initiatives to, gain some insight on why we can't reach them, what are the barriers, and things like that. So, that aspect of it was one of the things that I felt like, was one of my strong points and one of my just skill sets that I was able to bring to that.
Right. And like, because I feel like because people who are like attached to the game feel like it's just like any other job, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you might have benefits that you don't know about. I mean, it
Right.
took me years to understand that I can get glasses for my job. You know what I'm saying? Just because it was something
Yeah,
that I wasn't thinking about. I just
very
I just
true.
was going to work. You know what I'm saying? So like I feel like it's important because I feel like before like we got like the social media presence or like even like a presence where somebody can like go like in like speak for themselves. Sometimes like music industry, sports industry seem very predatory, right? So
Hmm.
like when you in it and you're making money for the boss, you know what I'm saying? Everything is good, you're getting high fives, you know what I'm saying? Everything is lovely. But then like
Yeah.
when you're out of it, I feel like there's nobody there to like hold you down. I mean, like there's so many stories of people like just kind
Right.
of like 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 being down and out. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, like you ain't got no reason that you should have been down and out. Like you had it all, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, well, like it was his, he did X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like somebody should have said, hey,
Come on.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
hey, maybe not do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just like Allen Iverson, he had a
Yeah.
lawyer that was like, hey, put
Correct.
away 10. So, so when you're 50, you know what I'm saying, it's
Correct.
yours, you know what I'm saying? So like I feel like we need more and a social worker's perfect for that job, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Man.
like you behind the scenes, you call people like you said, hey, like I heard this was happening to you. Because like sometimes like you watch ESPN and they say X-rated football players losing a foot or something like that. And it's like,
Yep.
let me call him and see, like, do you know that you can get that paid for? Or you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So I feel like, that's important. I feel like every team definitely should have 2 or 3, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's from 1960 to now, you know what I'm saying? And every player. So if you play maybe a
Correct.
season, I mean, like, is there like a threshold for it or something like that? Or was it
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, there is. So each team kind of structures how they view alumni a little bit differently. So it depends sometimes on the club, but most clubs will look at it as if you played one credited season, right? So if you earned a credited season, meaning that you dressed on the active roster for a set amount of games, then you earn that credited season with that club. But the thing is that you need 3 credited seasons to earn your pension, and it used to be 4. So now for the younger players, the magic number is 3, and that you'll kind of also see that whatever that magic number of pension is, then the average career will kind of be a little bit lower than that, right? So it used to be the average career was 3 years when pension was 4 years, and then the average career was 2.5 years when it's 3 years. So you kind of see that number, obviously, and that's just kind of how the business works. But one of the things that I truly was able to learn too from the aspect of what you were saying earlier, man, was you really find out, like, at the same time, we've all probably experienced this too in our own careers. Like you said, you truly don't go deep diving into your benefits package to see exactly what it all entails, right? And so, for a lot of these players, the assumption that the public has is that all these guys are millionaires. They made all this money. They either blew this money. They either, they wind up broke. They didn't invest. They didn't do this. And man, that couldn't be so much, further from the truth for the majority. The one thing that I got away from a lot of those conversations when I would do outreach is the guys who were calling me, or I would call and, I have a PhD in psychology. You know what I mean? I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney for 40 years. I left football to pursue, my legal degree. You know what I mean? It was the stories that I heard from those guys, educators, therapists. Like, I mean, I talked to so many guys that, their second career outweighs anything they ever did on the football field. And so that was kind of like the impact that I got from it, because I lived that transition and always kind of struggled with what I was going to find that was going to provide me that same type of, feel that football could have provided me. And so for some of those guys who, kind of have multiple different layers to them, in a sense, I say some guys I talked to, man, they had 5 different lives. You'd be like, man, you did this, you did this, you did this. And I mean, they just, were afforded so many opportunities and, just took advantage of it, especially, some of them that played during times where, obviously in the 70s and the 60s, opportunities weren't always open for, especially people who look like us. So to hear some of those stories and to hear kind of the ways in which the NFL was formed, through a lot of their activism and their advocacy about, changing pension and making sure that, these guys are taken care of. I mean, a lot of those guys, man, that, that get forgotten about, man, those are the guys who paved the way for the NFL to be what it is today and for these players to have what they have. And so I learned a lot, man. I got a lot of game from a lot of those guys and, a lot of mentorship and just, it was always something that I always felt like, man, more people need to know the stories because, I'll give you an exercise right now, man. If you go on Google right now and just type in a former NFL player and you just watch the stories that pop up. And I promise you probably scroll 5 pages before you find a positive story. So it's like, in a sense, when you're looking at it from that lens and the media is looking at it from that lens, obviously we're not going to highlight the stories of the guys who go on and have success in other things. It's a better story. It's a better media grab to be able to talk about the guy who got a domestic violence or the guy who, got caught doing this or drugs or whatever. Like, the media is going to eat that story up. So, I do want to be able to say and highlight the guys that, man, they, guys that inspired me, man, and just really have set themselves up to take care of generations.
For sure, for sure. Did you have to shake any tables? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you goes to the meeting and you read that policy, you might see the deal. Like, hey fam, I don't know about this policy. Now you ain't gotta answer that. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah,
can just blink twice if it is, you know what I'm saying? But
man.
you know, I mean we social workers,
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah, for sure, for
you
sure.
have to go in there
Yeah,
and say this
no.
policy ain't it, you know?
Listen, man, there's some ones, but one that I would say in particular, man, I didn't have to raise any of this because it was kind of already in play as I got into it, but I had to really learn about one of the things that truly took place was the concussion settlement and what kind of came around, players being able to get monetary awards for their experiences or suffering concussions or being diagnosed with a qualifying diagnosis of Alzheimer's, the dementia, Parkinson's, ALS. And one of the things that I was able to learn that was transpiring as I was taking this role was that there was a race norming put in place that was impacting Black players from getting those financial awards. And so one of the things that took place was that obviously when you go through the NFL and you go through the process that they're allowing you to go through, you had to get approved and had to be awarded these, you had to reach a certain like they're called like BAP assessments in a sense. So you have to reach a certain criteria for you to be eligible for that award. And so one of the things that they were putting in place was that Black players, they were saying that Black players were starting off from a lower cognitive level of their white counterparts.
Mm,
And so if you had to reach a certain level to get this award, if they were starting you down here, you'll never make it. And so that was continuously happening. So, man, it was players that wound up, kind of putting everything together and doing a class action suit, which kind of essentially set that motion and change. But one of the things that I was, blessed to be an opportunity was to call guys and let them know that, hey, you can be reevaluated, or hey, man, they're changing this policy, and hey, you need to reapply, or you need to go out there because a lot of times that information still didn't get to them, or they didn't feel like they could trust someone, and so, just being someone that, that can kind of just speak to what was going on and be able to provide insight, especially for the families and, to see people being able to, have their lives change, financially and being able to support themselves, because of that. And so, but that was one of the things that I definitely, when I got into the role, I saw, that was taking place in the NFL, and I truly, looked at it from that social work lens of like, man, that advocacy of what changes policies, what changes things, and how we can add to, really being able to push for, these things to really be, just at least, for people to be able to have access to things and being able to not have to run into barriers, especially around things that they deserve. I think that was like one of the biggest things.
right, for sure. Okay. Well, that is some social work for real, you know what I'm saying? Like you just gotta let people know, hey, this ain't, this ain't it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We gotta figure out to really bring equity. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's like
correct.
that. I don't know. I feel like that was the buzzword a few years ago. You know what I'm saying? I
Correct.
feel like I feel like I feel like some places are still like holding on to it, which I love that. You know what I'm saying? But just like anything, like I feel like mental health's on the fade too as well. You know what I'm saying? Just for me personally,
Yeah.
I feel like that's starting to lose its luster. You know what I'm saying? Which I feel like the need is still there. It's probably more than ever. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
people are. I feel like the pandemic messed up a whole lot of
Mm,
like it made people lose compassion over things. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like it went back. Like I feel like some of our policies and stuff went back like 7 years. You know what I'm saying? Like we was going for it, and now we
Mm,
like, okay, well, it's now we back open. Let's
right. Let's just
let's
continue
get our
to
money.
keep correct.
Let's get our money back. You know what I'm saying? But yeah,
America, America gonna be America. That's the reality of it.
that's facts.
Yeah.
So I saw you announced you had a new role. With the
Yeah.
Raiders. You know, what I'm saying congratulations on that. And is that more
Mm.
of the same, or is that more like what I'm saying like facilitation? You know, what I'm saying shaking hands. You know, what I'm saying training staff to do. You know, what I'm saying what you think should be done. X, Y, Z.
Yeah, definitely. It is. That's definitely pieces of it for sure. I would say this role, and recently just transitioned over to director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's it's an opportunity in an organization that is, you know, uh, this is the organization's legacy. And so, being able to work with, you know, I would say I got an opportunity to speak to close to 400 alumni, and in every conversation that I was able to have with alumni, if they ever met Al Davis, they had an Al Davis story. Like anyone that has ever met Al Davis has an Al Davis story. And I know you're a Chiefs fan, but you know what I mean. That man was something else. You know what I mean. And
Right.
so, to hear those men talk about who this man was, and not in the sense of football, not in the sense of that, but the man that he was and the things that he stood for, and that's the foundation of the organization. And so, being in this role is truly it's an honor, man. It's humbling, but one of the things that it is being able to bring that social work lens to this work. And so I look at it more from a macro type of approach, because it does touch the entire organization. And just being able to be a strategic leader, in ways in which we can strengthen our organization through diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, I think when a lot of times when we break it up and we look at, what is diversity, what is inclusion, what is equity, and you look at the landscape of today's workplace, I think it's evolved from the times in which, our grandparents were working and, got into a job and they just, wanted to settle in and, be able to get a pension or whatever the job offered. And they were just kind of set on that, mindset. And I think, in this new world that we're living in, especially post pandemic, the workforce is changing. Younger people are looking at opportunities a little bit differently. So, as an organization, you got to understand that as well. And you got to make sure that, you're putting things in place for that younger generation, or for people, even the older generation, just everyone, that you're putting together, pretty much an organization that is taking in mind and count everyone's individuality. And I think that's important, especially in the workforce, especially in, our organization of professional sports. But, it's an opportunity to really look at, things in which we can improve. And also, just ways in which, this DEI lens really offers, opportunity to grow, because that's the truth of the world right now. We need diverse perspective. We need people to feel as though that they, can bring their authentic selves to work. And we need to make sure that people are being given opportunities that fit their skill set, and being, awarded for that, being, recruited for that. And I think that's one of the things that I'm sitting here because people saw me as a social worker that has skill sets that could fit into this role. And so, at the same time, I think, that's the equity that we want. We want to be able to say, hey, I have a special perspective. I have a special ability. I have, unique skill sets, and, that should be included into not just, looking at job titles and roles and responsibilities, but, how this can offer the organization, a voice, and a perspective that we may be missing. And so, I'm excited about that opportunity. I'm excited about, just being able to, connect with the community as well here in Vegas. I felt like, my last 2 years, I've really, been really locked in on working with the alumni that I haven't really, gotten an opportunity to get out in Vegas and really learn, and shake hands, kiss babies, as you were saying, but to, get to know really how, what moves this city. Obviously, people come to Vegas and it's the entertainment capital of the world. But on the local level, as I've been living here, you really get to see that, I rarely am ever on the strip. So there's life going on around us. Many people come in, they go to the strip, and obviously that's, what they come to Vegas for. But, there's a lot of life happening around here as well. So, to be able to be impactful and really look at, ways in which, we obviously can use the Raider brand to strengthen the community, and to expand, our brand, into this community. Obviously, we coming here from Oakland, we're still trying to get our foot under as far as our fan base and really be able to cater to, Vegas. So, it's exciting. It's exciting, man.
Right. Okay, for sure. Where you see your ceiling at with the NFL? Like, you see, like, do you feel like you got one? Or do you feel like it's limitless? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, yeah, that's a great question, man. Right now, I just feel like, man, I'm blessed, man, for the opportunity that I've gotten, and I feel like, just in the moment that we're in, especially as an organization. Obviously, we have the first Black female president, in the NFL history. And it's hard to not go into that building and see, someone that looks like you, someone that's young, someone that's talented, get that seat and get that opportunity based off, their skill sets and what they bring to the organization. And so, I mean, it opened my eyes, man. I really feel like, it truly is, one of those opportunities that, if you truly feel like this is something that I continually want to do, and it's something that I feel like I can grow in, then I'm gonna put all it in. I'm gonna go all in on it, and I'm gonna see where I end up. But I do have some things that I want to accomplish in the meantime. And that's kind of what's driving me, because I really felt like when I got here that it was an opportunity for me to really just show, everyone that, what we do as social workers is valuable. And that was kind of like my first, I was the only social worker in the building at times. And so, when people would ask me, how did I, especially now, I would say more so when the players asked me how I got this job, that was the first question. I call a guy, we're talking, they're like, man, how you got that job? You know what I mean? I'd be like, and, I have to explain everything. I'm like, okay, but, and then I would tell them, my background is social work, you know what I mean? And so, being able to use social work and for people to realize how, our skill sets are, it can be plugged into anything. Corporate America, nonprofits, it doesn't matter. Our skill sets are very valuable. So, for me, it's making sure that I'm, in what I'm doing, that I'm also making sure that there's opportunities after me. You know what I mean? And so, I'm not in full control to be able to open jobs left and right, for social workers in the National Football League. I'm not in that position as yet, but I'm hoping that other teams see the value in what I'm doing and others like me are doing. And so that can create more opportunities. And so, but, in the meantime, man, I'm grinding right now, and it's, things are always kind of, shake out when you, just put your your good foot first, and, just be intentional about what you're doing. And so, sky's the limit, but, I'm excited for what the future kind of holds right now.
Okay, for sure. All right. Yes, man. Yeah, I was wondering, what I'm saying, like, because sometimes the social work jobs, what I'm saying, like me, I'm a school social worker, right?
Yeah.
There ain't really much I can do other in my agency, what I'm saying? Like, well, I mean, of course I can stay and keep getting raises because I'm a union person, so I just I'm here another year. That's another
Yeah.
$5,000, what I'm saying? I ain't mad at it, what I'm saying?
Ain't mad at that.
Right, what I'm saying? So it's that, but it's like if I want to like expand my skill sets, and I have to, probably make a move or something. So I was kind of curious, what I'm saying? Like, how do you see like a person like with your skill set being able to move on in the NFL and do something else? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you're already in the building, so so all you gotta do
Correct.
is
That's listen.
you know.
I've learned that's 90% of it, man. I would say too. One of the things that I realized as well is that you know being in this opportunity, and again, like I started off, you know, in schools, in the community, and so that was always like my foundation. So it's when I first got here, it was kind of being like almost a fish out of water because I realized that, I've worked in agencies or, in the past. There's nothing but other people that have my profession or my professional title with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm sitting, or if I'm in a school setting, I know that if people look at me as a school social worker or this, the title was something that kind of fit, the whole schematic of what's going on. But kind of when I got into the role of, working with former players, it wasn't something that one, the organization had really seen, and also, my counterparts have seen. So I would say, kind of being in that role, I would say, more direct service. Was one of those things that I felt like, I have a passion for, but I also know that I love the big picture thinking. You know what I mean? I love feeling like I get an opportunity to put my hands on, things that are going to impact on a global scale, especially, being in a position I'm in now with this role. I feel like I have a little bit more of a voice when it comes to, ways in which we can, look at, our organization in a way that we want to make sure that we're getting better in every asset, every department. And if DEI lends a lens to that and helps us to strengthen that, then we're a better organization for it. And so just being able to feel that my voice is now not just valuable to the alumni but to the organization. To me, I think that's like the stepping stone, because I would feel the same way, and this is just me personally. If I was in an academic setting, I would feel like my voice is the same. I would feel the same if I was, in the school setting. And I think that's just the way in which we have to look at ourselves and our profession. Like we've accumulated these skills, you know what I mean, to be able to be useful. So I feel like when we, allow ourselves to step out of our comfort zone and sometimes apply for jobs that necessarily wouldn't be a social work job, we'll find ourselves in the right place, and so, I would say lead with that curiosity sometimes that, hey, this may not be something that they traditionally have a social worker for, but, if you get in that seat and, your skill sets match up, then, the rest is on you. So, but yeah, I think that's the key, is really realizing, that you own the skill sets. Don't nobody own them but you, so however you want to plug them into the world is up to you, but, don't wait for somebody to lead you, to help you figure that out. It's, give yourself that opportunity. And so, that's one of the things that I felt like I've always been able to do, is kind of prepare for opportunity instead of just waiting for opportunity. I just prepare. Whatever I can do in the meantime, I'll do that to strengthen what I'm trying to do. But, I feel like there's always going to be opportunity waiting on you if you're preparing. So.
Okay. I was going to ask you if you had any advice for young social workers, but that was good right there. You know what I'm saying? That was good, you know what I'm saying? Because I do feel like we need to be taught how to be more creative, you know what I'm saying, like in these roles, because especially like how people are starting to see, like, you know what I'm saying, that, you got to have a personable person to, like, maybe fundraise for you, or like you said, connect to the alumni, you know what I'm saying? Because you just need that person in the seat, you know what I'm saying? Because community engagement is important, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, that equals dollars, you know what I'm saying? That equals reputation, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's probably a reason why, the Raiders have a huge fan base, right? It's because y'all take care of y'all own, you know what I'm saying? Like, you take care of, so your employees, so like you said, like everybody got an Al Davis story, right? He took care of his people. So like, you need somebody who can keep that reputation going, you know what I'm saying, and not squander it, because, all that shit is crazy nowadays, you know what I'm saying? So, well, brother, I won't hold you up too much. I know it's a holiday and we got, work tomorrow. Well, I don't know if we got work tomorrow because,
We back in the bar as well.
Well, good. Okay. Well, before you go, Derek Carr. No, I'm just playing.
Don't put me on the spot, brother. Don't put me on the spot,
I'm playing. But
I mean, you guys are still in the playoffs, man. I know, I don't often talk to Chiefs, Chiefs fans like that. They do a good job of taking over our stadium, coming in and letting us know very much where they rank. So I get it. I understand.
Hey, I was watching that game, and after that national anthem, when they said home when they heard that Chiefs ring out, I was like, oh yeah, it's
they do a good job of traveling, man. They do a good job of traveling.
Man, I was looking at going to that game, but man, I was like, man, the tickets was cheaper in Kansas City. I was like, I might as well keep going to Kansas City. But I might because I felt like that was the first game I ever went to, right? So like I feel like the first game you go to gotta be like a home game, because you gotta know the chants, you gotta know the rituals, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to a away game and it don't really hit the same. Like at least that's how I feel, you know what I'm saying? Because you're away.
You want to get the Chiefs culture. You want to feel the culture of Chiefs Kingdom. I get it. I understand that.
So next year, though, I feel like next year I'm pull up to Las Vegas, because I'll be ready, So it's funny though, I was thinking like, man, what if he like was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know somebody who comes to the game and I show up in this all Chiefs gear. They probably be like, ooh, like, okay, bro,
Listen,
like
you wouldn't be the first. You wouldn't be the first one, man. Especially as you you start handing out your tickets. Next thing you know, your whole section over there got red on. So
Right.
you know that's one of the parts about obviously us being here in that new stadium is we do get a lot of visiting fans coming to the stadium, and so just kind of like Dallas, they teams are going to travel to play your team. Obviously, the fan base is going to. People don't need a reason to come to Vegas, and they got plenty of reasons to come, right? So, I mean, usually when those games kind of come up or that schedule gets set, people do their best to try to get here and root their teams on. So, it's always the atmosphere. I would say is I mean, yeah, you get an opportunity to come to Vegas and witness a sporting event. Um, and I mean, I've been to a hockey game, first hockey game I've ever been to out here. I mean, it was something else. I just that Vegas spin to it. They do a little bit
Right.
of tying it all in. The city and the sport. And so, but yeah, man, it's definitely something to see that stadium and. Definitely as it grows and we grow as a fan base here locally, man, to grow that. But I did want to go back to something you said, man, because I think you hit the nail on the head, man. You brought up, us as social workers and, us, viewing this as our art, right?
Mm-hmm.
I follow you, you know what I mean? I see what you do as a creative, you know what I mean? I don't look at it as just like, okay, Chris is a social worker, you know what I mean? Like Chris is a creative. Chris is a creative using social work as his medium. You know what I mean? So I see so many other people doing a shout out to Kim, dope black social work. Like I watch, and I look at so many people that utilize, their voice and their platforms and, be able to kind of bring their own flavor to our field. And it's so important. It's so necessary that because again, I truly feel like we're all called to this field. And so whatever you bring to it, I mean, truly you have something to contribute to it. And so, man, don't lose that sense of yourself, because I always felt that way. I was in my grad program and I was like, man, I'm a football player, but I had to almost in a sense kill that identity because I felt like it's not useful anymore. And I couldn't have been more wrong. You know what I mean? But in that moment, I'm sitting in that classroom and I'm watching everybody talk about what they're going to do in their future. And in my mind, I knew I had a place, but I also knew that, it didn't exist yet in my mind, right? But I knew there was going to be an opportunity for me to be able to mix these two, in a sense, my loves, right? Social work and football. And so, as I was going through my grad program, I was always kind of in that mindset that like, okay, eventually this stuff is going to line up. There's going to be an opportunity for me to kind of bring both together. And I think there are people who are doing the same, who are kind of in that same space where they feel like, I'm shedding one identity to adopt this new identity. And I truly want y'all to understand that both can exist. They can coexist. And they're needed. And so, I'm thankful for the mentors that I have, the people that, I see that I look at and I get inspired by their work and the way in which they social work. And so, I truly want people to not only, look at, obviously, I know, I get it. I talk to people that are like, man, you a social worker that failed. I get it. But at the same time, like, before I was a social worker here, I was a social worker before this, you know what I mean? And I truly pride myself in that, because I've created opportunities in this field for me to be able to do things that, a lot of people just truly feel like they don't have the opportunities to do. And so I would say just truly, if you feel as though that's something that you truly want to, give your all to the field or to anything, but just bring yourself with it. Don't feel like there isn't some value to it. I truly feel like you have something to contribute to this field by just being your authentic self. So,
so I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Because I definitely, I feel like I wouldn't have made it this far. You know what I'm saying? If I didn't feel like I could walk in this places myself. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I add to every team I'm a part of, you know what I'm saying? And it's really just me being myself, you know what I'm saying? Because like I just like I speak with a stammer, right? You know what I'm saying? And of course, after years, I've figured out how to really, you know what I'm saying, not have it be so obvious. But for that to be not so obvious, I have to like stick to what I know. So like I can't really code switch. I can't switch up my lingo. When it's time to cuss, it's time to cuss. You know what I'm saying? Like
come out.
Right, you know what I'm saying? Like so I feel like I bring this kind of like that attitude to like, whatever kind of professional setting I'm in. And you know what I'm saying? I had um I had a old LCSW supervisor, shout out to Terry, you know what I'm saying? She taught me a lot, basically how to stand on my own professionalism, right? Because because I would write I would write assessments, right? And she would
Yeah.
read them and be like who's this? Like you know what I'm saying? Like who's this writing this assessment? You know what I'm saying? Like I need you like you are the professional. What did you see when you was like so you talking to this kid? What did you see? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Don't write what you think somebody else
Right.
wants you to. You know what I'm saying? You're the professional. Be the
I need your
professional,
lens. I need to
right?
see from your lens what you see it. Correct.
You know what I'm
Man, that's
saying?
so important.
So
That's so important, man. And man, like that's so valuable, man. To be able to know that, like like your perspective is all you need in this field. Is being able to take the mentors and your supervisors and take all the things that they're saying and add it to your tool belt. You know what I mean? I feel like that just strengthens you, right? But at the
right,
same time, before you was a social worker, you were you, and you were you in the
right,
spaces that you were in as well, and you were being received the same way. And so, a lot of times I feel like people get into their profession and feel like, okay, I got to clean it up, I got to do this, I got to do that. If you truly be your authentic self, you won't have to do much. You know what I mean? You
for
just
sure.
show up. You know what I mean? That's 90% of it. And people want to hear you. People want to hear your story. People want to know that you're thinking by impact or thinking through impact, and that you're intentional. And so that's one of the things that I want people to take away. Sometimes and don't get so caught up on titles or where somebody's working, because at the end of the day, I mean, the opportunities that I was able to create a lot of times for myself were things that I was able to do on my own. And
Hmm.
so, those were my internships personally. Those were my opportunities to grow, my opportunities to learn. And I truly didn't want to put that on anybody else to provide that for me. And so,
Right.
however you can, craft up, I don't care if it's a podcast, but if you have a platform, and sometimes your platform is not always something that is forward facing, meaning that people can see. if
Right.
you if you create a platform for yourself to be able to be and truly tap into the things that you want to be. For me, I would say the beginning of my genesis was in Toastmasters. um,
Mm.
you know what I mean? I got put on the Toastmasters. I showed up, and I found my voice. You know what I mean? And through that was before I went back to school. That was before any of that stuff. It was just a snowball effect. And so, in me finding my voice or finding, the things that really, just made me feel alive when I talked about these things, or made me feel like I was connected. I'm living that through my work now. You know what I'm saying? But I
Right.
was talking about this stuff way back then when nobody cared, or when I got 6 views, you know what I mean, on the
Right.
gram. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes your platform ain't the gram, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
sometimes it's an audience of 6 people. Sometimes it's an audience of 4 people. Like they say
Hmm.
in our work, what, two is a group. So
Right.
sometimes
That's real.
two is a
That's
group, right? Yeah, for real. So, you know what I mean?
real.
Sometimes don't get caught up on wanting to be in front of the masses so much that you lose the opportunities to be in front of people that truly need to hear you, and that,
Hmm.
you need that feedback from them as well. And so, I think that's truly the power of, sometimes just allowing yourself to, be slow on your development. You know what I mean? Give yourself the opportunities to grow, and sometimes they're not going to always be stuff that, is curated for you, but you got to sometimes, curate it for yourself. So,
That's real.
yeah.
Okay. And before we get out of here, you know what I'm saying? How's your nonprofit going? You know what I'm saying? Like how's that grind?
Man, I would say I'm gonna be honest. I would say I definitely I took a step back, man.
Okay.
When I got here, and that's one of the things that at first it was hard,
Hmm.
because when I founded that organization, man, that was like an extension of me and an identity. You know what I mean, of doing this work, and I was doing it in my community. I wrote down this goal, man, before I started school, that I wanted to provide free therapy,
Mm.
for people of color in my community. That was like this goal that I wrote down, and COVID allowed me the opportunity to do that. Right when COVID hit, I was a registered clinical intern, um, and I had an opportunity to work with the Urban League as a contractor. And so, as the pandemic was kind of, obviously altering a lot of people's grants and funding and stuff like that, because they weren't able to see clients in person and stuff like that. I was able to go to Urban League, and because I had an organization, meaning that I had an actual entity behind me,
Right.
I was able to go to them and say, hey, listen, I want to provide therapy. I'm already doing contract work with you. Would you be able to pay me the same contract rate to provide this therapeutic service? I had a supervisor, someone who was overseeing me. So for me, it was just, the creativity of how to get to the ultimate end goal, reverse engineering, right? I knew I wanted to provide therapy. I knew there was some way to do it, and I was able to figure it out. But to be able to provide that therapy during the pandemic, to me, to be honest, that I don't think there's anything that overshadows that. Like I'm here working for the Raiders. I'm truly happy in what I do, but there's nothing that I would say that top that, because it started from literally something I wrote down on paper. I
Right.
didn't strive out to become a social worker in the NFL. That wasn't my goal. But that was my intention, was to make sure that I can provide, and I was able to do that during the pandemic. And to me, that trumps everything. And so
Right.
that was kind of like the last piece of what I was able to do with that nonprofit. And I have plans for it. I'm gonna get back to it, but right now I feel like I'm in this learning season. I don't know if you ever read The Spook That Sat by the Door,
Yeah.
but
Well, I didn't read it, but I heard about it.
okay, yeah, man, I would highly recommend it. I read that book during the George Floyd, protests, social, all the social justice, right? Like I read that book during that time, and I just, if you ever get a chance, brother, I would say
Okay.
listen to it. If you can audible it.
All
It's good.
right. Yeah. Okay.
But I highly recommend it. But one of the pieces from that book was, um, this. It's a longer story. I'll have you read it, but I'll say this, man. Whatever you able to get, no matter what institution, no matter what organization you're able to infiltrate, whatever you get a foot in, take those resources and make sure that they also get back to your community. And that was a piece that I took from that book. So ultimately, yes, I'm here. I'm in this role, and I want to be able to, to grow as much as possible. But I
Right.
also want to make sure that I have a responsibility in this role too. You know what I'm saying? To make sure that other people get that opportunity, or to be able to share the resources that I've been able to gain, the connections I've been able to gain, and make sure I take care of the people that were also there for me. And so that's just one of the things that I always want to kind of make sure that I'm aligned with. But yeah, that book really gave me a perspective to look at and to kind of sit in. So kind of in that place right now. So I know right now time is kind of allowing me to strengthen my organization, because you need those years in
Right.
between to be able to show
Right.
your history. So I'm like, it's like a credit right now. I got the
Yep.
credit down to zero. It's just sitting there, and it's just helping me build and gain that capital right now that I need. So when the time is right, definitely. But I definitely need a team, and I definitely need the support. And I'm hoping to build that, man, organically. So that's one of the next steps to be able to make sure that I'm still aligned with that.
For sure. All
Yeah,
right, man. Well, sure. All right, Devin. I appreciate you, brother, for
yeah, man.
gracing us with with your story, because I feel like people will want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because you know my whole goal of social work is to show people that there's always more. You know what I'm saying? If
Absolutely.
if your school was telling you X, Y, and Z, I'm gonna tell you ABC. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And I don't mean to sound corny, but I'm just saying. You know what I'm
That's
saying? I
real.
want people to know that there's more than whatever you think you see, whatever you know. There's more here. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Definitely, man. I appreciate you having me, man. And like I said, man, continue to build that platform, man. Because like I said, when I was in grad school, bro, I knew about you, man. So like,
Okay.
sometimes you don't really know how far your reach is. But as a black male social worker, and being probably one of two in my class,
Right.
graduating class, you really sometimes just search for people that look like you, that are doing the work. Because obviously you get met with so much, especially as you start working in communities. The labels that they put on you, you go over here and try to take people kids, all those different things, right? That
Right.
come with it. But
Right.
to find other men that are doing this work, especially brothers, man, and being able to connect and to see the work that they're doing, man, I always truly get inspired by that. So yeah, man. Want to give you your
Okay.
flowers, man. Salute to you, and keep going, man. And Yeah, man. Great connecting with you, man.
Yes, sir. I'll be in touch. Don't worry about it.
Definitely.
All right, bro.
All right, man. Well,